everybody. It's kind of casual Friday, guys. I've been wanting to get this review. I finished this book, I think Monday or Tuesday of this week. The Magicians by Lev Grossman. How I'm gonna do this review is it's just gonna be this book, but it's gonna be very spoiler heavy. So just kind of be aware of that. My spoiler free thoughts are going to be this was a 4-star. It wasn't perfect. There was some things I really liked about this book and some things I didn't like about this book. Which might sound like, this should be like a 3.5, but so we can have some background art or something, guys. So I don't know. Like, I have mixed feelings about this book, but my main focus is obviously the character Quentin, because he's the main character, and why we like unlikable characters. I found in the beginning of this book he was kind of likable and kind of relatable. By the end, we'll get to talking about that, but I found that he was kind of in the unlikable realm, and most of his classmates kind of ended up being kind of unlikable too. But if you've never heard of this, never read it, the basics of this is Quentin, kind of a sad boy, doesn't really fit, really likes I kind of think it's like a kid's book, but I don't think it is. Like, it's like a magical kid type book. I kind of compare it to like the Chronicles of Narnia, where like they go to this magical world, and then at the end of the book they go back to the real world. And he wants to be there. He's like, that's where I belong. So one day he goes to his interview for an Ivy League school. I think it's like, did he say Yale? I can't remember. Some Ivy League school. Goes in there, is expecting to be reviewed. His interviewer ends up dead, and the lady, and then he's told, like, he's given this book, and then sorry about that, guys. And then he gets transported to the magical school that he's going to be attending for the next 5 years. There is a test that I guess you're told that you can't, really study for or anything. But he passes that. Like, all this happens. This is going to be my main issue. Everything is so quick in this book. Minus, like, a couple of scenes that we'll get to. But everything, like he's in his interview. Guy finds out the guy's dead. And by the next chapter, he's doing the test. Okay, test is done. Now he's, like, in his first class. Like, it's very, very fast. Which can have its benefits. Like, it moves the story along. Like, you're not waiting for anything to happen. But when you're talking about relationships with characters and stuff, this did not work for that department. The relationship between the characters, I could not really get into. You could kind of see things emerging. Like, you could tell, like, they were friends. Like, but when it came to, like, are they, like, these extreme friends, like, that would do anything for each other? Like, I didn't feel that. If that was supposed to be conveyed, I didn't feel it. So that was, like, one of my complaints. And then they they focus on, so he goes to a class, he's given a marble. I feel like the marble, like, Quentin gets bored with it. I got bored with it too. Like, and then I'm like, that's what you're gonna focus on for like a couple chapters? Like, we could have focused on something else, like anything else. And I think that was to prove a point where, yeah, I had to move in the thing, guys. Sorry about that. I know that was to prove a point where it was like, oh, you know, I think it was supposed to put the reader into the story where it's like, oh, he's bored, you're bored. Not really necessary. I didn't like it. But this is when we start meeting some of the characters. So at this point, we've met Alice, complete and total sweetheart, like the only angel of the book. And then we meet Elliot, and then we meet Phoenix. So by the end of all this, Phoenix, Quentin, and Alice are told, hey, you guys are powerful enough and smart enough. You can jump to the second year. And I feel like it wasn't, like, there wasn't enough class time to show how much they were smarter than the other students in the class, because we didn't really get to meet any of the other students. So, so that was some of it too, was we were just supposed to be like, oh, yep, they're smarter than everybody else. They deserve this jump in their education. And I was like, that could be right. Like, now we as, readers, we really don't know this world. So we're just kind of going through it the way Quentin's going through it. So, I mean, they had to study, and that was the other thing. They focused on all the studying way too much, and I think we lost a lot of character development in that. Like, I don't feel like the characters were driven out and the relationships were driven out enough, and then we focused on the world building a little too much. Like, the world building was fantastic. Like, the way that the magic world works, I really felt like I understood how the magic works, and like kind of the consequences of the magic and everything else. But by the end of this book, you can tell this is a reflection on mental health and how kind of being isolated, like they end up being like in the third and fourth year, really affects by the point they get to with, sorry guys, with the point that they really get to when it comes to real life situations when they leave the school. So we go through this whole thing, and then they get to second year. Yay, both Alice and Quentin pass the test. Phoenix is left behind. And I think that's a really big theme, because at the first chapters, you have Quentin's two friends. They're a couple. Quentin is left behind. Now Phoenix is being left behind. So there is like kind of a cycle of this going on where it seems like, how does being left behind affect you? And that's kind of the thing with Quentin, like, especially when we get a little bit more further in the book, like, you really do see that depression hitting him. We definitely do see like how he's affected by everything around him going forward. And I think where it really hits is when I think it's third or fourth year, I can't remember. They take a final test, not like the final test, but the final to get into the next year, and they go through their trial, which is the first part of it is turning into geese and getting to the South Pole. Now, this is where I really think we could have lightened up on some chapters. I feel like we were geese for too long, and I feel like the communication, again, we didn't have communication between all the characters again, so we really lost a lot of time getting to know all the other characters. Like, I felt like by the end I got a good idea who Quentin was. But when it came to, like, Elliot, when it came to Alice, and stuff like that, I didn't really feel like I really knew them. And then we get to the South Pole, and then they're silenced from each other. So again, we are working with this idea of isolation, but it's not really helping the story, because I'm like, by this point, we're getting to the point where it feels like Quentin and Alice are kind of going through how they feel about each other. And then it's like by the time we get to the fox scene, the Arctic fox scene, which is them having steamy time in fox form. I'm just going to put it that way. Like, I didn't feel like, yes, they have chemistry. They've had chemistry this whole time. But what I liked about the scene afterwards is Quentin's comment of, I don't know how I feel about you. I don't know if I love you. Like, I don't know. I don't even know if I know what love is. And I think with the fact of how his parents treated him, this was a very good comment to tell Alice. Like, I really, in all honesty, never think Alice and Quentin should have really been together. Now, if they want to be friends, like friends with benefits, go for it. But I don't think Alice would have been okay with that. And I think that was what my problem was with Alice's and Quentin's relationship, is I think they made really good friends, but I don't know if they should have taken the next step. So when Quentin sees her, like, how her parents act with each other, and he's like promising her, like, we'll never be like that. Okay, now you're kind of going to the extreme. I don't even think you know what you're doing, Quentin. And like, I feel like this is kind of when Quentin's character goes down the hill. Because everything kind of after that, okay, like they're graduating, like they're kind of working on their theses and stuff like that. But it seems like, sorry about that, guys. But it seems like by the time you get to that point, like, it's kind of going downhill for them, even though it's, what the book is showing is that they're fine, but I don't think we're getting enough time with them to show, like, the really big decline. And then when they finally get to Manhattan, so, like, seriously, this is kind of the point, this is kind of, like, the part that also kind of irritates me, is how fast we get through the school portion. Let me see. So this is like a 400-page book, guys. So book 3. Okay. Like, it's really fast. Like, I thought we were going to focus the whole book on, like, the school portion of it. And then, like, book 2 was going to be, like, kind of going out into the real world and having maybe some type of conflict. And then book 3 was just going to be finishing whatever conflict was in book 2. But, like, that is all we get for the school portion. So it is half of the book, but at the same time, like, I just don't think that was enough. Like, I think to build the relationships that we needed to build so that when they left the school, it made sense for them to want to move in with Elliot and everybody else, but I don't feel like, minus the fact that it's like they lived with these people forever, but like, did they really? Because a lot of this is, I mean, their fifth year they didn't live, like their fourth and fifth year they didn't live with these people. So it's like they just jump into an apartment with these people and then shenanigan breaks out. And like most of book 2 going into book 3 is them drinking and partying. And Quentin finally is like, I'm going to cheat on Alice, like right in front of her. And then Alice cheats on him, or actually she doesn't. She just sleeps with somebody else, and then Quentin gets mad at her, and I'm like, Alice has a complete total right to do whatever she wants. You cheated on her, so she's allowed to do whatever she wants to you. And then they go on a mission by book 3. And part of me is like, you didn't need book 2, to be honest. Like, I wouldn't have mind if they graduated, they were told they had to go to a mission, and then Quentin decides, like, he needs to cheat on Alice during the mission. I don't know how more impactful it would have been versus what we got, but the mission, between the school and the mission, that was the most interesting part of the whole book. So if we got rid of book 2 with all the partying and the drinking, I would have been okay with that. Like, I didn't think it was necessary, minus we really just saw Elliot's decline mentally. And I think that's more what this book is trying to say. Like, which I do like. I do like the mental reputation of this book. Like, it's really showing what depression does to a human being. And then we just have the magic portion of it. But at the same time, I'm not seeing these characters enough to be like, okay, I mean, when I saw Elliot's decline, I'm like, yeah, that guy needs help. But I don't feel like us as a reader, I don't think we're really feeling that, because we really don't know Elliot as a character. So it's that balance of, okay, I see the mental health reputation over here, but the character development over here is not as strong. So that, like, there wasn't a balance. So I wasn't feeling for the characters, minus, and I'll get to it in a second once we start talking about the mission, but it's just, when you have that type of, like, power over here with mental health, like, you really need that character connection. Like, they need to talk to each other. And I just was not feeling that. And then once we get onto the mission and it starts going badly and Quentin loses Alice, like, I feel like I should have felt something. Like, I feel like I should have started crying at that point. Like, if they were, like, such a good couple and there was so much pining and stuff when they were in school and stuff like that, I feel like I should have felt that, and I didn't. And I felt for Quentin, like, when he realizes that he can't get her back, he can't wish her back, and, like, he goes to, I'm going to call it the mortal realm, and gets a real job, and you're seeing him kind of face his consequences finally, and you see the depression, and you see what he's going through, and And then, like, he's told at the very end, like, you need to become king. Like, that's the only thing. And I don't know. I hope it gets better by book 2. I'm kind of hoping that he lowers the cast a little bit too. I think there was too many characters that we were dealing with that too many characters that we were dealing with that we could have lowered the amount of, time with, and then we could have upped, the relationship value in other ways. I just didn't feel like there was like too many characters to have to kind of go through. But otherwise, I would still say it's a 4. Like, I still enjoy my time with this book. I'm still going to continue on with the series, but kind of what my main thing is why is Quentin such an interesting character to read? And I think it's because of his layers. I don't think he's actually a bad guy, to be honest with you. I think it's just he doesn't know how to deal with people. He doesn't know how to communicate. Like, and I think if he just told Alice, like, I don't want to be with you anymore, I think Alice would have understood. They could have been friends. They could have been fine. But like, I think he just doesn't understand the balance of communication. And I do kind of see the fact that Alice is kind of a boring character. And they kind of make that kind of clear throughout the whole book. He didn't need to cheat. He just needed to let her know, like, hey, I'm not interested anymore. And she kind of makes that clear. I feel like she does ask him a couple times, like, is this something you want? Is this something, we want to go forward with, or do we want to break this apart? And he doesn't give her an honest answer. So, I don't know. I think he does have layers. I think we're going to see more layers once we get further into the books. Or he's just going to end up being kind of an ass. I mean, simple terms to, say that. But, I think that's going to be kind of where we're going to end up at the end of this trilogy and how I feel about him at the end. But anyways, if you liked this video, if you want more reviews, like just like simple book reviews, just let me know in the comments. But otherwise, if you liked what you saw, like and subscribe. I do both anime and book content. Anime is usually on Thursdays, book content is usually on Sundays. And then we just go from there. So, I hope you guys enjoyed. Like and subscribe. And you guys have a lovely day. Bye.